It's Meet the Biz time. I tell you, this is keeping me sane, but it looks like I'm going insane. But we have no buts, and we have an incredible filmmaker today. I mean, he produces, he directs, he writes, he's done acting, he's done it all, and that's why I put filmmaker. And
David, who is it? I can't wait to meet this person.
Well, it's Cory Reeder.
That's me.
What's up, dude?
Not much, man. How are you doing, David?
I'm hanging out. I actually took a walk. I got my little mask on today and my gloves and my hat, my glasses. I look like a movie star. And
yeah, as you always do every time that I see you.
Oh.
A very well put together man.
Yes. And for those, well, look that up. Start your sign language class. That's what I'm telling all the students. So, hey, I was looking through all your amazing stuff that you do and have done. And by the way, congratulations on writers Scene to Screen Stuck in Quarantine.
Thank you.
Yeah,
a little bit of alliteration going on there.
Oh, I love it. You know, and I was reading it. I was going, oh, it's just, you know, what a great title.
Yeah, thanks.
Renaissance Man Productions. Where did you get that title?
The idea for the company name came from when I was in college, and I got to intern at Scott Free, which is Ridley Scott's production company.
Oh.
And there was a woman there by the name of Jen Leshnick. I still remember her name. Probably haven't talked to her in 25 years. And basically, it came around Christmas time, and I made everybody holiday cards, like from scratch. I was a starving college student. I didn't have a lot of money, so I made these cards myself that were cool and cinematic, and I had bought little snippets of film and cut out the frames and put them, like, decorated the cards, and I gave her a card, and she opened it up. Like, I was like, here you go, Jen, here's, you know, happy holidays. And I started to walk out. She's like, no, I'll open it. Like, she wanted me to be there. And so she opened it, and she's like, was awestruck. And she said, where'd you get this? I said, I made it. She says, you made this? She's like looking at it. She's like, this is so creative. This is so cool. You are such a Renaissance man. And I was like, ding, file that one away for later.
Yeah.
And that's where the production company title came from. So thanks to Jen.
Wow. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
Ridley Scott. You know, I have to, like, connect you with Susan Olsen because her favorite movie is Alien.
Ooh, it's a good one.
So.
He's got some really good stuff. I actually have, don't mind the wife, she's working.
Hi.
But behind the wife, right over there is a Blade Runner poster that Ridley was kind enough to sign for me before I left my internship tenure. It's one of the little film geeky things I have in my office.
Oh my God. Since we're on Ridley, I have to tell you this little story. I was up in San Francisco, and I got called from one of the casting directors, and he said, we have this commercial that they're shooting, and I know you don't do extra roles, but we need some extras, and the director requested you.
Ooh.
And I said, well, who's the director? Ridley Scott. I went, I'll do it.
Yes.
So I was like I was sitting at a back table, but he went through all the extras and picked out everybody. It was amazing.
Yeah. That's a good little director's note right there. I've Allison and I, my wife that you got to see there briefly, while we've been stuck in quarantine, we've been watching a lot of Netflix and Hulu and whatnot, just like people do, because there's no place to go. Mm-hmm. And you can really tell shows where the creatives or the director have a finger on the entire vision. We've noticed how some shows have really good extras. Mm. And we're just talking about the people that are just in the background of a shot, like pretending to talk or walking by or inspecting something. And then there's other people where the extras kind of just like sit there and maybe stare at the camera as it goes by. And you're just like, why didn't they catch that? Fire that person, get him out of there, something like that. But then again, when you're making movies on a shoestring, sometimes you get what you get, and you're hoping that the audience looks at the foreground. Right. Hey, look at the actor doing the thing. Don't look at the goofball back there that's picking his nose or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. It's every little, that's why they say there are no small parts, because each, it's a painting.
Yeah.
You know, each stroke. I was, like I said, I was looking through some of your videos that I want to talk about, and your movies. And one first thing before it comes on screen, and I was going, oh my God, I've got to get one of those, is your production logo.
Oh yeah.
Where did you do that? Did you do that? Did you get it done, or?
So I came up with the logo itself, the circle with the RMP and the R is inverted. I came up with all of that, and I went through for hours, you know, looking for the perfect font and all that sort of stuff. And then when I started making more content, I wanted to have something to put in the front of the movies I was making. So I reached out to a friend of mine who does motion graphics, and he basically, I had an idea of what I wanted. I knew I wanted it to spin like that and then slow down and come to like a stop, like right in the center of the screen with the company name. So I described that to him, and we worked through it. And you know, it was a little bit of a favor, a little bit of a pay thing. You know, everybody's got to eat, pay the rent. So you know, Gavin was his name. He did an amazing job on it. And then I happened to be working on another film at the time where there was somebody who was composing original music for it. And I said, hey, would you want to make something kind of cool and techie sounding for this company logo? And he was like, sure. And again, he's like, what's your budget? I said, I've got like $100. And he said, sure. And we talked about that. I was like, look, I only want like 2 or 3 notes, but I want it to sound futuristic. And he maybe did 3 or 4 or 5, maybe 6 passes of it until I was like, that's it. I love it. So it has that cool little boom thing.
I love it. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Stuff to do during quarantine time.
There you go.
Oh my God. So how did you first get involved in the world of the lack of representation with disabilities in media?
Well, a long, long time ago, I met a person that I'm sure nobody knows, especially from Meet the Biz. He's this guy named Nick Novicki. You ever heard of him?
I think I have. Of course.
Nick is amazing. Yeah. Hey, Nick.
In fact,
amazing.
I saw the film today, by the way.
Oh, Unlikely Temptations.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's how I met Nick. Okay. I grew up in Orange County, California, down in Fullerton. And I was there, and I had started my company, Renaissance Man Productions. When that story about working at Ridley Scott's company, I was commuting back and forth through college. And then I decided to move to LA at one point to start to kick up my job experience and try and get better directing, producing, writing gigs. And I wound up getting a lot of producing gigs. I wound up doing a lot of music videos for really cool bands like Seether and Five Finger Death Punch, and a lot of cool, fun rock bands. Yeah. And then I wasn't getting any directing jobs. And my heart, David, is in directing. I love directing. I love working with the screenwriter and helping them craft the story or understand what their intentions are with things, and then helping shape that with the actors, working with the cinematographer to get the right shots to tell the story and the lighting, all the way through the editing process, all the way up into the marketing. All of the movies that I do all my own marketing. I come up with the still photography, I pick the font for the poster, everything. But I have more fun when I can share those responsibilities with other people.
Right.
And so I got really sort of like, I started to burn out on producing. I needed to get the creative juices going again. So I sent out to screenwriters everywhere. whether you were on Inktip or screenwriting blogs on Facebook or Twitter. I just said, if you have a 7-page or less screenplay that you want to sell for $100, I will buy it if I like it, and I will produce it. And I read over the course of 2 months about 175 screenplays that were submitted to me. And Unlikely Temptations was one of the ones that I absolutely fell in love with.
Yeah.
It was originally called The Unlikely Temptations of Christ. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, I don't want to make a Jesus movie. But I had made a promise to myself. People are taking the time to send this to you. You should take the time to read it. Maybe there's something to learn from it. And I did learn something. A lot of people cannot write well. But when you found a diamond or a piece of gold, man, did I pop. And that was what this thing did. So I was not excited to read this script. And I flipped over the title page and got to reading. And I laughed out loud 3 times on the first page.
Oh.
And I was just like, this is it. This is amazing. And scripted in that movie is that this character, this imp, comes up named Bob. And he was described as a little person. And I'm the kind of person that it's like, look, I want to be respected as a director, and I want the people that I work with to be respected in their fields, whether it's actor, cinematographer, grip, PA, gaffer, hairdresser, makeup artist, or screenwriter. And if I'm going to want to have screenwriters be respected, then I need to respect the writing. So as a director, I said, this is written as a little person, I will cast a little person. And so I set out to do that. And I went out and I started reaching out to different people, and I talked to a couple of comedians and other actors that are known, and they kept on saying, like, man, you really got to go to this Nick Novicki. He's your guy. And I was like, all right, you sure you don't want to do it? And they'd be like, I can't, tour schedule, or I'm on another thing.
Yeah.
And so I wound up calling up Nick. I got I think I sent his manager an email who forwarded it to him, and Nick called me up and he said, let's meet for coffee and talk this thing out, which is totally respectable because Nick is playing the devil, and people may not know this about Nick, but he's got a good streak of faith in him. And he's like, if I'm going to play the devil, I don't want this to be against my faith. And I was like, totally. So we wound up meeting at the Grove, and we got some coffee. And we talked through my intention. He got to know me. I got to know him. And it was a very polite, caffeine-filled conversation where we read through the script a couple times. And he said, let me sit on it. He called me up the next day. And he said, I'm in. And we were off to the races. And we went, it gave me about another month to go and produce it. I had to find the guy that was going to be playing Jesus. And then we had a couple of rehearsals because it's really a 2-hander.
And where did you film it? I mean, it looked like the Sahara Desert.
Yeah, right? So there's this spot when you're leaving Los Angeles and you're going to Vegas.
Yeah.
There's this little town in between called Baker. Most people know Baker because it's got the world's largest thermometer. And you can see it from the roadside. Maybe you stop there to get some beef jerky or some burgers or something.
Yeah.
But if you get off the freeway at Baker and then you head about, an hour and a half into the desert, you come across these fantastic sand dunes called Dumont Dunes. And we were out there for 2 days filming at Dumont Dunes and another place called China Beach Date Ranch, or China Date Ranch, which is in this little town over by Dumont Dunes called, I think, Tacopa, something like that. But so we were at those 2 locations, the ones with the sand dunes and at the Date Ranch. And little tidbit that I was taught by Brian, the guy that owns the Date Ranch, was that the very first crop ever cultivated in Israel was dates. So the whole topography and everything that was around there, at the end of the movie, you see these lush green fields. Well, those are all date plants. Those are all that's this guy's date range. Yeah. So it was meant to be like finding these places and filming there. So, but while we were out there, we shot the film in 2 days. And over the course of those 2 days, anytime that we weren't going over lines, anytime we weren't talking about blocking or the right way to do a punchline, or can Nick ad-lib this, or Steve, the guy that played Jesus, play something this way. Nick would pull me aside and be like, hey man, you know, I really like what you're doing here. There's a tremendous lack of people being cast with disabilities in film and television. Like, this is a really good thing. Hey man, did I tell you this is a good thing that you're doing? Like, you should think about doing this more often, casting people with disabilities in more roles. Did you know, Cory, that 20% of the population has a disability and only 2% is represented in television film? So for 2 days straight. 2 days straight, he berated me into submission. And that's how I got into this. And to be honest, I know a lot of people at Meet the Biz are familiar with the Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge, which Nick started. We were out in the desert shooting Unlikely Temptations. And part of Nick's agreement for me to for him to be in Unlikely Temptations was for me to do the second annual Disability Film Challenge. So we filmed on a Tuesday and a Wednesday in the desert. And on Friday, I did my very first Disability Film Challenge.
Oh my God. So it was that same week.
Yes. Crazy. Woo! And you may not remember this, but it was because of you that I got my cast for that very first film. I think I called you up on Thursday or maybe late Wednesday night and said, hey, David, my name's Cory Reeder. I got your phone number from Nick Novicki. I need some actors for this Disability Film Challenge thing he's going. Can you help me out? And you said, sure. What do you need? And I said, everything.
That was Speed Date.
Yeah, that was Speed Date.
I mean, that's so clear in my head. I didn't know that was like the first week that you really worked with Nick.
Yeah. And you hooked me up with 14 actors. I cast 14 actors with disabilities in that movie Speed Date, which was the very first year I participated in the Disability Film Challenge. And that, if anything, Nick giving me a good solid ribbing for 48 hours pretty much had me like into wanting to do this, into this being something that I'm interested in. But quite honestly, doing Speed Date sealed the deal, because there was an experience that, like, rather than walking through the whole day, I'll just finish with this, is that at the end of that day in the coffee shop where we filmed Speed Date, every single actor in that came up to me and didn't just come up to me and say like, hey, thanks. They came up to me and pulled me aside and said, hey, I just really want to say, like, this means a lot that you put me on camera and you gave me lines and you made me funny. No one's ever done that before. And then there'd be this beautiful warm embrace and this hug. And then I'd be like, oh, thanks, Dina. Thanks. And Dina would roll away on her chair and I'd turn around and there'd be someone else saying like, hey, come here. I just want to say how much this. And so 14 people in a row pulling me aside,
right,
telling me how much it meant to them to be a part of it. And then just like sharing the love. I was just like,
well, I remember, I mean, I still remember that film and how much joy that I got from watching it. So it came across from the production, from the actors, through the screen.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was a great experience. I mean, even to call people up, and they took a clip of that in I think it was the beginning of this week, Performing Arts Studio West 6th week. Every week we've been, Alexander Tovar, our wonderful editor and music extravaganza.
I got to work with Alexander before.
Yes, right. He did music for one of your films. Well, he put together for John, John's, the Performing Arts 22nd anniversary is coming up, June 1st.
Wow.
So
wow.
We did, Alexander put this together, and there's a clip from your movie in there.
Oh, nice.
And I went, that movie, I've got to see it again. It was so funny.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
You used everybody. You used them and used their talent.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was one of the things that I realized, that as you just started sending me emails saying like, here's another one here. I started saying like, all right, and you, and then my brain started to fill up. And I had, thank God, I had Nick's voice still clearly echoing in the back of my head. This is about representation. This is about people being seen on screen. This isn't about people with disabilities being background talent. Sure, that's important too, because we should have representation in the background as much as we should in the foreground. But it clicked that night as I'm trying to write the screenplay. Because, you know, Nick only gives you 55 hours, where here's the idea. You got to go shoot it tomorrow and edit it and turn it all around in 55 hours. It dawned on me, I can't just have these people be there.
Yeah.
They have to have screen time.
Well,
they have to say things.
The thing is, too, good actors, good professional actors that have been trained at Performing Arts Studio West and through life and talent. So, you know, when you told me the certain characters, and as a casting director, you know, I thought, okay, who would be good for this and this and this? And I visualized the picture myself. And, you know, this doesn't always work like that, where I, you know, as a casting director, and I've said this before, it's sort of smorgasbord. Would you like this? Would you like that? And ultimately the director, producer agrees, but that was a fun one.
Good.
Fun. You know, I have a couple more questions. And then you're going to actually have a little class here. A couple more things. I mean, oh my God, the Jonathan Davis videos.
Yeah.
I mean, I was looking, I went, I forgot that you worked on those. You did that.
Yeah.
And of course, Natalie Oden.
Totally.
She's stunning.
She's a peach.
Oh my God.
So good. So good in that.
So good.
And that, if I could tell a brief story about that. So,
sure.
Steven Steelman from Brigantine Films directed those and brought me on to produce them. And he was pitching me the idea for the first one. This is before we knew there would be a second one. And he was like, look, there's this, he kind of pitched the idea of it's this spooky thing where they take in young men from the street and they kind of try to brainwash them into this weird dystopian world that already exists within this theme of the larger album that Jonathan Davis had created. Yeah. And he's like, I kind of want this preacher character to be there. And I'd like to just have one girl. And I was like, I've got a great girl. She comes up to me every year at the Disability Film Challenge and says like, hey, can I be part of your movie? And I said, you know, she's on the spectrum. She's got a great look, like exotic. And he said, all right. And I sent him a couple pictures and he said, she's in. So if you watch the first video, Natalie is really kind of only there in the very end. And you see her serving these drinks to the guys. And then a lot of the guys have a very violent ending. But as we were filming that video, we would talk to Jonathan about, you know, different concepts of the video and say like, hey, if you ever want to do another one, here's some ideas that maybe we could do next. And part of that conversation also was me saying, you know, just talking to him at like the snack table or during lunch. I was just like, yeah, you know, I got this thing that I do. Everything that I work on, I try to at least hire one person that has a disability. And he was, you know, eating his Fritos. And he got, oh, that's kind of cool. All right, whatever. And then we got a treatment. After that video came out about 2 weeks later, Steven Steelman got a request like, hey, Jonathan wants to do another video with you guys. And he wants to make that girl the star of the video. We didn't have an idea for it yet, but Jonathan Davis specifically said he wanted Natalie to be the lead actress in that video. So then we did the next one. And it's a backstory. So it goes back in time to figure out how this young girl gets into this strange brainwashing house. And it turns out she's a runaway. So it has this great story of her running away and then like sort of living on the streets and some dark stuff. And one of the homeless people on there is our very own Diana Elizabeth Jordan. So I got her cast in that too.
Oh, that was, I mean, talking about Diana Elizabeth Jordan, that was a great story. I didn't know all about that. But I mean, Natalie Oden, oh my God, beautiful and chops. I mean, she's going to be doing some big stuff. She's a great actress. And Diana Elizabeth Jordan, what is it? Best Friend? She was in your film Best Friend. And then she directed your production of I Can?
Correct. Yeah. So Diana was in Speed Date. She was one of the first people that you introduced me to.
Right.
She has a small role in Speed Date. And then it came around the next year after Speed Date, we did, oh crud. Babe, what did we do after Speed Date?
Was that Best Friend?
No, it was the basketball one. Boxed Out. Oh. And Diana came up to me and said, I really like working with you. You know, if you have a bigger part for me, I would love to be in another movie. And so that was the year we did Boxed Out, and we made her the lead, which she got to play a detective. And again,
that one.
Yeah.
I forgot. Yes.
That's one of those moments where she came up to me afterwards and said, again, I got to tell you, Cory, like, I'm a woman of a certain age. I'm Black. I have cerebral palsy. Nobody in Hollywood is ever going to cast me to play a detective in the LAPD. But you did. And it blew my mind. I don't think about those things. You know, I think about, I write a role. I know I'm going to cast her in it. I don't think about that it can't happen because I just made it happen.
Well, the directors like you, producers like you, who do stuff like this, who cast people who might have a little differences than this person or that person, you are changing the viewpoint. So now people will see that movie, see other films and say, hey, that's a great idea. And then it opens up. It opens to a bigger range of, you know, it's on a series television and feature films and, you know.
From your mouth to the God's ears, you know. But so after Boxed Out, we did a Best Friend. And there was a transition there. Diane and I really enjoyed working with each other. And she came up to me that year and said, hey, I'd like to produce a little bit. Can I shadow you? And I said, okay, but I'm going to bring on another actor to be the main actor with a disability. And that's where we brought on Jatan Neal, the young girl that has Down syndrome. And Diana helped me produce that year. And then the next year was Ain't Woke. And that one, Diana went from an associate producer to a full-on producer. And she really did a lot of stuff. And she only has a little cameo in the end of that movie. Right. And she said that year after Ain't Woke, she said, I think I want to direct next year. Can you help? And I said, you betcha. You've been in 4 of my movies. You've worked your way up from the ranks from being sort of a small character to a lead character to these fantastic supporting characters. And now you're a producer. Let's do it. We're going to rock it next year. And last year we did I Can with J. Aaron Sanders, who wrote that. And Diana directed. I produced it. And she got a nomination for Best Director. First movie she ever directed, nominated Best Director, and that was nominated for Best Picture. So, Diana.
Wow, what a string of films that you have. It made me think of one of my favorite directors, especially in the 70s, Brian De Palma. And there were every film that he did, I just loved it. Sisters, Obsession, The Fury, Phantom of the Paradise, Blowout, you know, and so it just, his name just popped into my head as you listed all your films. And I was, God, all of them were like, you know.
Nice.
This is what we're gonna do. This is going so well. We're gonna come back for another episode, and the second episode, we're going to have you teach the class. So.
Yeah,
I love it.
I'll walk you through some ways to be able to make a movie from home.
From home.
The basics of production while we're all stuck in this mad, mad world. Ah!
Oh, you could see my Zoom pants.
I'm wearing them too, brother.
Oh,
yeah.
But I do have pants on, even though it doesn't look like it.
We're just a couple of guys with great gams.